I never thought one small moment, just opening my son's door to say goodnight, would end up changing the way I saw my family, my son, and even myself. But life has a way of turning the simplest acts into the most profound lessons, and that night became one of those moments. My name is Laura Mitchell. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio with my husband, Mark, and our 16-year-old son, Ethan. Like many parents, I was always balancing work, family, and the constant worry of whether I was doing enough for my child. Ethan was a good kid, quiet but thoughtful, more of an observer than someone who threw himself into the spotlight. He wasn't the type to fill the room with noise or demand attention, but I always felt there was a world of thoughts going on inside him that he rarely let anyone see. That evening had been an ordinary Thursday. Dinner had been simple: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and steamed vegetables. Ethan had picked at his food, clearly distracted by something. When I asked how school was, he gave his usual response, "Fine," before excusing himself. Mark and I exchanged glances, but we didn't push. Raising a teenager often feels like trying to solve a puzzle without all the pieces. Later, while I was folding laundry in the living room, I heard the sound of laughter drifting down the hall. Ethan's voice was mixed with another boy's. I remembered he had mentioned earlier that his best friend, Ryan, might come over to work on a school project. Ryan had been in and out of our house for years. He was the kind of kid who lit up a room the moment he walked in, always polite, always quick with a smile or a joke. Where Ethan was quiet, Ryan was vibrant, and the two balanced each other in ways I found heartwarming. It was getting late when I finally decided to turn in for the night. Mark was already asleep, but I lingered in the hallway, thinking I should remind Ethan to wrap things up. I patted down the carpeted floor quietly and stopped at his door. A soft glow of lamplight spilled from beneath the crack. I raised my hand to knock, but hesitated. Instead, I turned the knob slowly and peeked inside, not wanting to intrude but hoping to catch Ethan's attention. What I saw made me pause in the doorway. Ethan was sitting cross-legged on the floor, his back against the bed. Ryan sat opposite him. Between them was a half-finished poster board covered in handwritten notes and colorful drawings. But the project wasn't what caught me. It was the expressions on their faces. Ryan was speaking earnestly, his voice low but steady, while Ethan listened with an intensity one hadn't seen in him before. "I know it's hard," Ryan was saying, "but you don't have to pretend with me. You don't have to carry it all by yourself." Ethan's eyes shimmered in the lamplight, and for a moment I thought I saw tears. My heart clenched. I had never seen my son look so vulnerable, so raw. "I just don't want to disappoint anyone," Ethan whispered. "You could never disappoint me," Ryan replied without hesitation. I felt my throat tighten. That simple sentence carried a weight I don't think even Ryan realized. It wasn't just encouragement. It was a promise, a declaration of unwavering friendship. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but I stood frozen, afraid to move, afraid to break the fragile thread of honesty weaving itself between them. In that moment, I realized something I had overlooked for far too long. My son, my quiet, thoughtful Ethan, had been carrying worries he didn't share with us. And yet, here he was, opening up to his best friend in a way he never did with me or Mark. Finally, Ryan glanced toward the door and saw me. His eyes widened slightly, but instead of looking guilty or embarrassed, he gave me a small, reassuring smile. It was the kind of smile that told me everything was okay. Ethan turned to follow his gaze, and when he saw me, his face flushed with a mix of surprise and self-consciousness. "Mom," he said quickly, wiping at his eyes, "we were just—" I stepped inside, raising a hand gently. "It's okay," I said softly. "I just came to say goodnight." There was a silence that stretched between us, filled with things unspoken. I wanted to rush in, to hug him, to tell him he never had to hide his feelings from me. But I knew this moment wasn't mine to control. It belonged to Ethan and Ryan. So I offered a small smile and added, "I'm glad you have each other." Then I slipped out of the room, closing the door quietly behind me. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed what I had witnessed. The tenderness of Ryan's words, the vulnerability in Ethan's eyes, the bond between them. It was something both fragile and powerful. I realized then that sometimes the people our children need most aren't us. Sometimes they find strength and understanding in their friends, in peers who walk the same path and face the same pressures. In the days that followed, I began to notice things I hadn't before. The way Ethan lit up when Ryan came over. The way their laughter filled the house, spilling down the hallways like sunlight through open windows. Ryan became more than just Ethan's friend. He became a piece of our family fabric. He stayed for dinner often, sometimes even overnight. And slowly, I began to see my son open up more, not just to Ryan but to us too. There were nights when the three of us sat at the kitchen table long after Mark had gone to bed, talking about school, about dreams, about fears. Ryan would ask Ethan questions that made him think deeply, and Ethan, in turn, would share parts of himself I had never known. It was as if Ryan had unlocked a door inside Ethan's heart that had always been closed to the rest of us. I'll never forget one Saturday morning when I found the boys in the backyard. Ethan was sitting on the porch steps with his guitar, strumming softly. Ryan leaned against the railing, listening intently. When I stepped outside, Ethan looked up and smiled shyly. Ryan wanted to hear the song I've been working on, he explained. As he played, I realized I was hearing my son's voice in a new way, not just the sound of his music, but the sound of his confidence blooming. Ryan clapped enthusiastically when he finished, and Ethan's face glowed with pride. That's when it hit me. Ryan hadn't just been a friend. He had been a catalyst. He was helping Ethan discover who he was, helping him step into himself with courage and self-acceptance. And in doing so, he had changed everything. Months passed, and the bond between them only grew. Ethan still had his quiet days, still wrestled with insecurities, but he wasn't alone anymore. He had Ryan, and in some ways, so did I. Ryan taught me something invaluable, that love and support don't always come in the form we expect. Sometimes, it's not a parent's lecture or guidance that makes the difference. It's a friend's unwavering presence, a simple sentence like, "You could never disappoint me." Looking back now, I'm grateful for that night. Grateful I opened the door when I did. Grateful I got to witness the depth of their friendship. It reminded me that being a parent isn't about having all the answers. Sometimes, it's about stepping back and allowing others to help shape the ones we love. And so, when people ask me what changed my son, what helped him grow into the confident young man he is becoming, I always smile and think of that night. The night I opened his door to say goodnight, and his best friend changed everything.